97. Yes, that's 97% of us crypto lovers, forget to do this. And the chance that you do is quite high. This is what I believe is likely the number one reason most people lose money. I truly do believe that. I'm going to cover what that is in this video, but I'm also going to tell you how you can overcome it. This video took a fair bit of work for me to get ready because I had to come to a whole bunch of conclusions. There was a lot of tweaking and figuring things out to come to what I believe to be one of the best solutions for this problem. Like I say here, most people don't choose to do this. Matter of fact, actually, I think most people just don't want to even bother with this because they just want to know what altcoins to buy. That's literally it. So if you're still watching this video right now, pat yourself on the back because you need to listen to it. And if they do, they always forget to do it or actually go ahead with it, follow it through when they start printing some serious money. You're going to print money, okay? You will. You'll see lots of money add to your account, okay? A lot of those zeros start flowing through. But I know from experience, you see that, you think you're some sort of next walking god, and what happens? You don't end up selling. That right there is going to cover the premise of this video, guys. Do not forget, if you enjoy yourself, hit that like button and subscribe for more daily crypto content. My name's Kyron. Guys, I've spent 20,000 hours in crypto researching. I've looked through the metrics. I've looked through and backtracked what makes projects pump. And today I'm going to give you one of those secrets. One of the secrets that goes into something that I think most people overlook, and that is selling. Selling is such a big, important part of any investment plan, and I guarantee you right now, some of you are probably thinking, now, do I click off this video or I just let him talk for a couple more minutes? Now, you can do what you want, but I'm going to tell you right now, you can choose to ignore this. You can choose to let this video fall off in the back of your subconscious, but I am telling you right now, you'll be scrambling to find something like this in the next bull market or bear market when you realize you screwed yourself over in this one by not following what I'm going to say. It is very simple. I hope this video goes no more than 15 minutes for your sake because I really want everyone to watch it, even those of you who have TikTok brain. Let's get into it. No offense if you do, of course. Now, let's get into the two most notable sell plans I think there's out. Now, everything else is some combination of these two. Number one, we have what's called the bell curve sell plan, where you essentially, if you're looking to get out of the coin at $1, you sell most of it at $1, and then you sell an equal amount at a couple or maybe even 3 levels, 4 levels either side, okay? But the trick with this one is you have to actually sell an equal amount. So with this example, we're selling at $1. That's our price target of selling $1. If you sell the first level beneath that at 25% down and the following one at 50%, you have to match that on the top side as well. So what I'm sort of saying here, if I can clean this screen up a little bit, is if you decide to contract your sell levels, as we'll see soon enough, and make it safer to sell, because honestly, selling at $1.50, if you're trying to get out of the coin at $1 might be a bit risque, okay? So you decide to bring that down. Maybe you make this $1.40 on the top side. You have to match that on the bottom side as well. This therefore would be 60 cents. So if you're selling down here or above, at let's say a 40% increase, you have to sell down here at a 40%. Otherwise, the bell curve doesn't make any sense. The bell curve, to be a traditional bell curve, has to be nice and even. Now, that's one. So essentially, very static. A lot of influencers will go out there and say, hey, to keep it simple, sell 25% of your portfolio here, 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 and here, and call it a day. That's not quite a bell curve, of course, but that is essentially sort of outlining that sort of plan as well. Is just keep it simple, stupid, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, nice and even. The alternative here is patent pending, right? Trademarked, no BS crypto's boat on the water method. Now, believe you me, I'm trying to come up with a different saying for that. Essentially, it's selling as if you were thinking of like a boat on top of the ocean, okay? Like we can see here, usually a boat is nothing but a speck on top of the waterline, and usually the ocean is pretty expansive. It just keeps going, right? And so in this case, the boat's anchor is our sell levels, okay? And the way we want to work this out is the waterline is the price we're getting out of. Again, same example, $1. The anchor, we start selling all the way down there, and then we begin jumping up. We can see here 30-cent increment, then we go to 20-cent increment, and then we go 10-cent increments. And then after the waterline, so we get tighter and tighter on the way up, we get really tight, okay? So in this case, $1.05 and $1.10. So the difference here is that, of course, you have more sell levels, but you're selling further on the way down, and pretty much you're selling at pretty much $1, right? You're getting very close, opposed to this one over here where you're possibly selling at like $1.50, which is 50% more to the top side. In this case, you're only selling 10% more to the top side, so it's less. The thing is, you usually have to sell at least 50% of the portfolio above the $1 mark. Rather than this, you're likely going to pretty much be selling, well, you can change it, of course, but it's usually around, 20, 30, 40%. So it's a lot safer in some degree with the bell curve, but I'm going to make the case for both of these, and we're going to come to figure out what is the actual best sell plan to follow. It's going to be a combination of both of these. I want you to pay attention because I was pleasantly surprised with my own findings. So in these two examples, please just try to tune in, and if you get lost at any point in time, let me know in the comments where you were lost. I can make a follow-up video. Alternatively, maybe just replay this video a couple of times to really gauge it. It won't be that difficult to understand if you know what you're sort of looking at here, but for you complete beginners out there, I really suggest, and again, this is for you, to listen to this and try to absorb it. It's only going to help you, okay? That's why I'm making this video to begin with. So in this example, we're going to pretend, again, we're following a somewhat similar pattern to really show you the difference between these two here. So first of all, we have on the bell curve side of things, right? We're going to start selling at 50 cents, and we're going to have the same example as up here. Okay, so then we'll sell at 75 cents, and then we'll get out at $1. Again, remember, $1 is the price target we want to average out at. That's what we're looking for. And then for $1.25 and then $1.50. And in this case, the way I think most people like to do their sort of bell curves is something like this, right? So you sell 10% down here, 15%, 50%, 15, and 10. There's nothing really wrong with this, but the problem is, again, we're selling 50% above our intended target. Now, when we're looking at a coin, if this coin, for example, was H-bar, right, looking for $1, the difference between $1 and $1.50 for H-bar is huge. A coin like, let's say, Flux, that's averaging around 50 cents right now, and usually the increments it jumps in is 50 cents, that's fine. But again, in this case, we're likely not looking for a coin like that. It would probably be more akin to something like H-bar, and therefore an increment of 50% from our price sell level is ridiculous. So this doesn't make any sense to begin with, and I'll show you more on that in a second here. Next, of course, is the sort of patent pending boat on the water method, where again, we sell at 50 cents to keep things sort of similar here, and then we go up to 70 cents, 80 cents, 90 cents, just like this example up here, and then $1, $1.05, and $1.10. So you'll see we're actually selling 60% at above the $1 price target, so well more than this, right? Up here it was only 25% and only 40% at the $1 mark and lower. The thing is, like we can see here, what you have to understand is while there's 60% of your portfolio on the top side past this mark here, we're only selling it at 10% max above that point. Now we compare that to over here with the bell curve, right? It looks better because we're selling 75% of our portfolio down here, but we have to also sell 35% above at prices that, starting at $1.25, I mean, we're getting out at $1.10 on the top side over here. So this is 25% risk, and this is, of course, 50% risk. So you might already, if you are a pretty keen sort of investor, already begin to make some sort of comparisons, kind of matching some things between the two. You'll see momentarily in a second here, the winning formula has a combination of both. But for those of you who want to know a bit more and geek out a little bit, I will try to leave timestamps down below so you can skip ahead. Let's have a look at an example with just both of these, right? So $10,000 invested in this example here at 10 cents. So we own 100,000 tokens, okay? So let's run through the bell curve first. In this case, again, the same bloody exact example, okay? We would make $66,000, so 75% of our portfolio if we followed this example beneath the $1 mark. Very safe, that's great. If you put in 10 grand, you're making 10 grand plus 56 grand profit, but then you're risking $33,000 on the top side because, again, it might be very hard to reach these levels on a coin like H-bar, for example. So that's 50% extra risk, or thereabouts, a difference between these two, but 50% risk. Opposed to the boat on the water method, we're only selling $33,000 down here. So again, $33,000 versus $66,000, but on the top side, we're making $66,000. So we've pretty much flipped, right? $33,000, $66,000, over here, $66,000, $33,000. Again, you would look at this and go, oh, that's a no-brainer. I would go with that. But again, remember, 50% risk on $33,000 versus $66,000, 10% risk. So I'll leave it right there. Usually on coins like this, if you were looking to follow this example, price action should pretty much blow past a point like this and then maybe wick down, and then it can find some support before going up again. So you would likely, be able to take your profits entirely from something like this versus going up in large increments. Now, some of you might be thinking to yourself, well, Kyron, it's simple, right? Take the bell curve and constrict it. Make the sell levels smaller. So like I said before, to have a traditional bell curve, if you do want to constrict it, if you start selling it 10% down here and then 20% down here, you have to match that. So 10% above, 20% above. It's like a seesaw, right? The seesaw essentially is these side levels down here. If you begin to add some more percent of your portfolio to the top side, the seesaw gets heavy on one side and light on the other, which obviously won't look like a bell curve. It'll look something like this. So traditionally speaking, it doesn't really work. Again, we can kind of keep going with this example, right? You might then go, well, 5% down, 10% down. Well, again, you have to match that. It's all nice and constricted, okay? So you're pretty much selling like right low, like the other example. But again, you're getting close on the bottom side as well. So you'll get to a point eventually, I believe, where you'll kind of end up at just, hey, let's just sell everything at $1. Like, let's just hit it all bang on the money. Because you're constricting this bell curve so much to where you honestly end up saying to yourself, well, it's just pretty much worth trying to get at it all at once. Now, on the contrary, with the other method, right, the boat on the water method, this is the previous example I just showed you before with this particular method. And if we have a look and try to, again, find a way to make this work, right, make it more viable, well, what we can do is begin removing sell levels and condensing the actual sell prices themselves. So rather than 7 levels over here, 7 levels, we have 6 levels. Okay, and notice 50 cents, 70 cents, 80 cents, 90 cents, $1. Let's now say 50 cents, 75, 95, $1. So we've removed the level and we've sort of changed levels to be a bit more spread out, if you will, okay? As well as changing some of the percentages you can see up here. So 20%, 35% rather than 15, 45. So spreading that risk across, which is safer. And what actually happens is we end up adding more to the bottom side. So going from 33,000, we add 6,000 to the bottom side. We've taken that from over here, okay, and moved it down, essentially is what we've done over here. And what I noticed when I was actually looking at making this itself, I was like, the difference between this chart and this chart is the fact that this line's getting more linear. Okay, it's getting linear, if you will. Okay, so I was like, this is interesting. What if we try to go completely linear? Will that solve our problems? Well, I tried this, okay? The more linear, the better in this example. And what I mean by that is selling the portfolio at even numbers, break-even linear numbers. So 5%, 10%, 15%, and then I realized you actually can't, because if you try to divide 100 by 6 and then add the incremental 5, 10, 15, 20 to this particular example, you end up with 105%. So you can't do that. You kind of have to go 17.5, 22.5, and 30%. But what I found was a very close to linear line, and we actually end up in the best possible example for this situation, which is $41,000 sold underneath the $1 mark and $58,000 sold above. So obviously the more you sell below, the safer it is, and the less you sell above, the safer it is. So this is great. Okay, so we got very, very close in this instance, but of course it's still not perfect, because at the end of the day, we want perfect. So I did find the perfect formula. It is a combination of the two, where you can have, like, for example, 5 sell levels. You might want to have more. It doesn't really matter. If you have more sell levels, you just have to spread up the different percent and play around with it a bit more. But ultimately speaking, the winning formula is, in this example, taking that bell curve where we have most of it sold in the middle at that price, and we only have 2 levels above and 2 levels below. So 5%, 10%, but we have more to the top side, so 50%. 50%, in my opinion, is a lot more safe than having something like this. This is a little bit over 50%, of course. So the best possible case I found was still selling exactly 50% on the top side, but you're still getting out quite low here, right? 50 cents and 75 cents. You're getting, these sell levels in quite low, and again, sticking very tightly to the top side. So only 5 cents and then 15% above. So that's the best I could possibly do. It looks like a weird bell curve, right? We sort of come up, we come down, and then we kind of have a little tail wick to the top side on that last 15%. So that'll about do it, but when is it applicable to use either of these? Well, it's applicable, in my opinion, to use the bell curve method if you are someone who's looking for more simple structure. Again, you might want to even say bye-bye bell curve. You might just want to go 25% sold at 4 different levels, or 20% sold at 5 different levels, or maybe 10% sold at 10 different levels. Whatever your plan is, the bell curve is pretty much a slightly more complicated example of that. a bit more playing around to do. It is more risky in my opinion alone because you do have more percent sold above, which is unlikely to actually meet. And if you do decide to constrict these towards the center, you're better off, in my opinion, just pretty much selling most of it bang on the money. In a way, right? Not quite, but in a way. Mid to micro cap altcoins is where I believe this will do really, really well. You can, of course, apply this to the large caps, but in my opinion, mid to micro caps also falls in line with better to use well within the green zone. And that's simply because if you do have to spread these out quite a lot, ultimately, you don't want to be doing that on coins where you're kind of right up towards the top, like price prediction levels where the liquidity might not be very strong. It doesn't make sense to do that. You want to be doing this on the coins that will very easily blow past these sell levels, even on the last and fifth final sell level you can see here. Now, this was the previous example. I want to show you all for how complicated this can get and how quickly it can easily become a boat on the water sell plan if you start playing around with these numbers, right? Because if we had the same example for before, right? $1 is the price target here, and we want to make 100 grand. Well, actually, if we begin playing around with these numbers, right? If we go, oh, well, the bell curve's nice and even, but let's just move some of these sell levels around and the percentages around. If you do that, you quickly find that you begin getting an uneven amount sold, okay? Which means that you end up losing money on the top side. So ultimately, the bell curve's great for a beginner, and that should stay that way in my personal opinion. If you want to manipulate a bell curve and play around with it, then you want to pretty much go with the winning formula, in my opinion, right? The winning formula here is a mixture of both. Doing this. If you decide to do anything else with the bell curve as a beginner, you're likely going to be confusing yourself, which can cause you thousands on the top side, right? Lastly here is, of course, the boat on the water. It's complex or more complex. In my opinion, you need to go to the private community and use the portfolio exit tracker that I made, where you can come in here and manually enter your price levels in and actually see it pop up on the chart. Of course, you can do that in the private community in the vault, guys, level 1 and above. And it's less risky, in my opinion, as a direct comparison to the bell curve method, because you are only selling a fraction above the actual intended price, which means price will likely hit that anyway on a move and then come back down again. It should be used on mid to large cap altcoins, and in the same way as well would be better used towards the top of a green zone or in an area in which you think, well, this market a bit crazy, because again, you can use it anywhere you want, micro caps, small caps, right in the green zone, wherever. But I think it's best utilized at risky prices because ultimately, again, you're not trying to sell so many levels above it, the actual intended price level. It's all very constricted to that point as well. Plus, you're selling so far down, you should at least make some profit. So guys, that will conclude today's video. I hope you have enjoyed, learned something new, most importantly. Share this with friends who need to hear it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. What's your favorite sell plan? And did you understand this? I want some feedback. I can make more videos if need be. Take good care. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.